All right, so we have our character in part, but mostly our character is just shapes at the moment. And obviously, this is incomplete. So there's some things that we want to do to make this guy look about right. So the first thing that we want to do, we might want to start making some uh, changes to these shapes so that they look a little bit more three-dimensional. And we're basically going to do the same sorts of things that we did with our sphere. So with our head, I'm going to make a new layer above it. I'm just going to call it lighting. And then I'm going to control click in the box here to select my head. Again, remember to get on the right layer. So we're going to go up to lighting. In my toolbox here, I'm going to select my brush. I'm going to go with airbrush soft. And I am going to go for a lighter gray on this one. Remember, we're just going to keep everything at the moment in grayscale. And we'll color everything really, really quickly at the end. Don't worry, it's very, very simple. So we're just going to follow kind of the lighting notes that I've got listed here. You'll notice as I add in some of these lighter tones here, I notice something, right? Which is that my body is in the wrong spot. So let's pull it below the head. Let's pull the leg below the body. Let's pull the arm below the body as well. And you'll see that that looks a little bit better. Again, control click on the head, go to your lighting layer, and we will actually make the bottom of the head a little bit darker. I'm going to size my brush down using my bracket keys. Right, so we have the general form. One thing that we probably should decide is, where is the light actually coming from? Right now this is kind of pillow shaded, meaning that it's just sort of a blob, right, with with some light in the middle and some darkness around the outside. So how do we want to address this? We want to, again, control click in the head. And one of the things that we can do, actually, I don't want this to be necessarily a glossy head. But I might take my hardness and tick it up to, maybe 70%, somewhere in there. And if I'm not sure how this is going to look, I always make a new layer first. Right? So this is not working well. Let's go into our brushes. Aha! Spacing's at 25%, but if I change it to 1, we should be good. Let's also change our shape dynamics. Sure. That looks a little bit better. Now, let's say that the light is going to be coming from this general side here. If I can make a little fall off. Let's turn the hardness all the way down. If the brushes are overwhelming for you, you might want to turn the opacity down on them a bit. Turn this one to about 50%. Right, so there I've got my sort of my specular light. Yeah, just a little bit's fine. And then let's take that light and just shift, drag off to the side. And we'll go around to the outside here, create a little backlight. And if things don't look quite right, that's all right, right? This is all in layers. You can always start over, right? Let's do another quick little layer here. Maybe something like that to start off with. Yeah, let's give that a try. Put most of our backlight as if he's being sort of lit from below, from behind. And I've just changed my color to that gray using Alt. And that gives me a little bit more control over exactly how much of that light kind of shines through. Yeah, I like this a lot better. Let's get rid of that layer. Control, click on the head. Now, if I want, another thing that I can do with this is I'm going to take my eraser. Let's go to soft 20% eraser. I'm going to make it nice and big. I'm just going to very lightly get rid of some of the lighting. One of the reasons that we do things on so many different layers in Photoshop is that it gives us a great deal of control over exactly how each of the layers look, right? So in this particular case, I've got a lot more control over that lighting because it's on, you know, two different layers here, right? So if I'm content with that, I might Control E, let's just call that lighting. Cool. Now what we might want to do is we might want to make these little robot eyes to go on his head. So let's do that. And we'll do that, we'll grab an elliptical marquee tool. And I can pull that out. Again, you can make your eyes as big as you want, but I'm going to make mine a little bit larger than normal. And I'm going to start with kind of a very dark gray. Remember, we're trying not to use black as much as possible. So here we go. I've got on my new layer here, we'll call this one I1. Now, another thing that I can do with my eyes here is if I hold down Alt and I'm on that layer, I can drag a new eye out. And what I'm thinking is I'm actually going to make one of these circles kind of like a little backing for my eyes, kind of like a little protrusion that comes out of the head. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to Control T on this new eye that I've created, and I'm just going to size that down. And what I'm going to do, let's go right into color overlay. And the reason that we're doing that is because when I drag it over, I'm kind of dragging it like this. Now, by the way, if you ever want to make like a donut, this would be like kind of how you would start, right? You would do Control click, you would go into the eye below, and you would hit delete, and you know, you would make that shape. But let's say that you want to actually, you know, sort of keep these here, and you can't quite get the alignment just right. What do? So you grab this, just by holding Shift, and then you go up here, and there's alignment tools right here at the top. So you would hit this horizontal align and this vertical align, and there you have it, right? So let's go back to our I1 layer. That's our darker layer of the two. And let's do a color overlay. And let's make it a little bit lighter. Let's go back to our second one. Let's darken it a little bit more so that it doesn't look too much like the metal. Okay. So the way to think of these projects is not really as one big project, but actually it's a series of little ones right here. So this is the project where we're constructing the eyes, and you know, we can make little digital eyes if we want to. Sure, no problem. Let's go and let's grab our rectangular marquee tool. And what we can do, if we want to make eyes like this very easily, now we're going to select white. I just told you don't use white and black, so that's fine. Let's use an off-white color here. Okay, so I've got this, and I kind of just want this design. So it's pretty easy to make, right? All I would need to do is Alt and just drag, you know, make sure I've got my auto select on, and shift drag if you want to get things right where they should be. Right, so it'd be something like this. All right, so now what? I mean, that doesn't look quite right, right? So let's actually just grab all of these layer 3s and do Control E so that it's one object. Let's change the opacity on it. Let's bring it so it's just in the right spot. Now what we do is we go over to our I1 copy and we just Control click, select inverse, and delete. I'm sorry, delete on the new layer that we just made. Right? Now, another thing that we can do is go down to the I1 layer here. And if we want, we can make a little bit of lighting on the top here. Just like that. If we go into our I1 copy, that'll be the inside. If we want to make a little bit of lightness, we might take some of this color and just put in there. If that's, let's make sure our hardness is okay. Back. Let's get this a little cleaner. Now remember, if I want to separate these eyes out a little bit more, I can lower the opacity on this. If I want, I could go into my eye here. I could go into my layer style. I could add things like a stroke. Add it to the inside here, keep the edges a little cleaner. I can take this, remember to bring the opacity back up. And one thing that I can do too, if I want to keep this editable, is grab all of these layers and just click the folder button, and we'll call this one I. Let's see how that looks. You turn off your auto select, you'll be able to move all of this. Alt, Shift, and drag. And now you've got two eyes. So these look a little bit big. I can grab both of my eyes at the same time. Control T. Let's bring them down to about the right size. And there we go. If I want to make those eyes a little glossy, one of the things that I can do is on a new layer for my head here, I can, let's go totally white on this so that we can get a nice, make sure our opacity is all the way up at the top, get a nice specular highlight on the glass. Now if that looks a little wrong to you, you can change the hardness all the way up to 1, and now it looks glassy. Remember, every surface that's lit gets its own specular highlight. Yeah, that adds a little something, doesn't it? One other thing that we can do too that might be kind of interesting is to go into our little computer eyes here. If I turn my auto select back on, I can go back in here. I can double click, and let's do maybe outer glow. And for right now, we'll just leave it as kind of a light gray. but you can see you can sort of control that glow a little bit, can't you? Okay, say that's good. We'll double click on this one. We'll do an outer glow, and it will default to that same glow. We'll say OK. Nice. So our head's almost done. If we click back on our head, another thing that we can do too here is make these sorts of sides. So I'm just going to select some of this dark black. And if I want, I'll probably want to actually make a new layer, or go onto this, yeah, let's make a new layer. We'll go under our eyes, but over our lighting. Right, and we can just take some of this stuff here, and we can draw lines like that. Now, that is one way, but if we want to keep things looking really synthetic, what we should do is use symmetry. So on your brush, you might want to click this guy over here, this little butterfly. Go to vertical, and you will need to probably hold the shift button down as you move this and resize it. But once it's resized, one of the neat things is I can take my brush, again on this new layer, and you can see it does the same thing on the other side. So I could be as fancy as I want, and we're all set. When you're done, turn your symmetry off. Right? If that doesn't look 3D enough to you, again, we can apply a layer style. How about let's just do bevel and emboss. Bevel and emboss will ask you kind of where's the light coming from, so you'll have to let it know, and you can decide how light or dark you want the effect to be. Right, so there it is, and you know, as long as we're on it, let's do a little mouth. Oh, you know what? I'm noticing that this is going up. Let's make it go down. There we go. There we go. Got a nice little robot face here. It's not exactly what we had in our sketch, but it's pretty close. And it looks pretty nice. So I'm going to pause here and finish up some of the other aspects of the body, and then we'll talk about painting in details and then adding in color, which is kind of the last step. So we'll stop and we will resume with the rest of the body being just about ready to go.